Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of the Goal Line Hockey Podcast. Welcome to the pod and a bunch of RFA signings. We'll be looking at all of that in today's podcast. Now, obviously, this is my first time doing this, so obviously we're going to have things change over the next couple weeks as I start to figure out how I want to do this. I got the new mic, as plenty of you guys have noticed in the YouTube. But this will be our first post on our Patreon as well, as we are going to be doing a weekly podcast here every week, talking about all the latest news in the world of the NHL specifically, but around hockey, the hockey world in general. Vasily Podcaulson will be looking at his demotion in the KHL. The Ottawa Senators continuing a great offseason, re-signing Chris Tierney and signing Alex Galchenyuk, and plenty of you in the comment section have been quite interesting in that regard. Devin Tays signs his restricted free agent contract with the Colorado Avalanche, a 4-year deal. And Josh Ho-Sang will be staying with the Islanders, and we're going to take a look at the Josh Ho-Sang saga and how that continues. We'll be looking at some entry-level contracts, some ELCs, some guys being welcomed to the big show. And the big topic today, the restricted free agents that we have seen signed. We have some of those names. We'll be looking at all of that here today. All right, so starting things off, we're going to head to Vancouver and Russia at the same time because the Vancouver Canucks prospect Vasily Podkolzin has had a heck of a ride in the NHL. Now, if you remember back when he was drafted, Vasily Podkolzin was projected to go in the top 3. That's right. He was projected to be a very, very highly thought of prospect, lots of talent, and would be ready for the NHL sooner rather than later. But we've started to see that Podkolzin may have a more difficult path in his way. The former 10th overall pick back in 2019 has been demoted from his KHL team up in SKA St. Petersburg and has been sent to the VHL team, which is the AHL equivalent. In 2018-2019, his first season in the KHL, in his first 3 games, he did not put up any points. In his second season, which was last season, 2019-2020, he put up 8 points in 30 games, which isn't too bad. I mean, we're talking about, this is like pros. We're talking about pro level here. And considering his age, he's only 19. He was 18 last year. He was still a teenager. That's not too bad. But now this season, where you would hope to see a little bit more improvement, he has not really seen that because through the first 19 games, he only has 4 points, and he's a -1. Yeah, Vasily Podkolzin. He is one of those guys that has so much talent, so much skill, and it's taken a detour here. Now, we're looking back at October 26th. It was a situation where people were tweeting about Podkolzin being scratched for 3 consecutive games up at SKA with St. Petersburg. And that's when the question started to arise. And then the VHL team, which is the AHL equivalent of St. Petersburg, releases their starting rosters for that night, and it just so happens that number 19, Vasily Podkolzin, is on the roster. And that's pretty much how Podkolzin found out he was demoted. Since then, though, which is a good thing, Vasily Podkolzin has been on the top line. He's been playing penalty kill, power play. He's been getting all the minutes down in the VHL. But if he wants to get to the NHL, he's got to improve on that. And the way the KHL works, it's very weird. You get yo-yoed like you do in the NHL, going from the NHL to AHL. We see that happen with guys all the time. But it feels different for Podkolzin because he was projected to be a top 5 pick in 2019. And then people started to think, well, why did he drop? And a lot of people said maybe an attitude issue. Maybe the fact that he's a Russian player. Guys tend to fall in that situation. We've seen Kuznetsov fall. Tarasenko. It works out for teams because they're willing to wait. But some guys, it just doesn't work out because they never come to North America. That's just the risk you sometimes take. But Vasily Podkolzin has a rough road ahead of him. I think it'll only make him stronger once he gets to the NHL. But another rough road for him. And again, in Vancouver, everything gets out. And there's no way of hiding around it. Unfortunately, that's the light that Podkolzin is in right now. Hopefully he's able to turn that around. I love seeing those underdog stories. And we could see that with him. Speaking of another underdog, we're heading to the nation's capital up in Canada as we're looking at the Ottawa Senators, who've had a pretty decent week. Chris Tierney re-signs a 2-year, $7 million contract, $3.5 million per season for Chris Tierney, the center for the Ottawa Senators. 37 points last season. He has 189 points in his over 400 games in the NHL. Spent a lot of time with the San Jose Sharks. Spent now time with the Ottawa Senators, a part of that should I mention his name? Sens fans. Erik Karlsson. He was part of the Erik Karlsson trade. Not a significant piece by any regards, but compared to that top 3 draft pick. But Chris Tierney is a solid player. Now, in other news for the Ottawa Senators, as we made a video on our YouTube, make sure to check that out. We take a look at Alex Galchenyuk, 26-year-old forward. Had a tough season last year. Put up 24 points last season between Pittsburgh and Minnesota. 8 goals, 16 assists. Not terrible, but again, for a guy that's a former number 3 overall draft pick less than a decade ago in 2012, you probably would expect a little bit more from the young forward. He has just not been able to make it work. And a lot of you in the comments on YouTube, which actually at the end of this video, I'm going to start looking at the YouTube comments, and I'm going to start looking at your guys' comments and reading them off on here just so you guys get a little bit of love and a little shout out. So make sure to stay tuned for that at the end. I really love you guys' support. I really appreciate it, especially recently. The channel has been booming, making more content for you guys, and the feedback has been amazing. But anyway, Alex Galchenyuk has turned out to be a very polarizing figure, which I said in the video, and I've seen very much in the comments, and we'll be looking at that later. But a lot of you were very, very adamant about Galchenyuk. Your opinions on him range from him being a butt to some of you saying that he's a decent pickup, and anywhere in between that, it seems like. Let's just look. You know what? Let's give these guys credit. We're going to look at the comments. And one of you said, I'm good with Galchenyuk coming to us. He fits what we are doing. There is low risk with the potential for high reward. That's a very good point. He can play as a second-line left winger since there is still a good chance that Stützle will remain in the DEL till the end of their season. This also takes some pressure off of Alex Formenton. They can leave him in Belleville for one more year to develop. Thank you, Duquette71, my boy. All right. And then somebody also mentioned, some of you in Ottawa may like this, and I saw this yesterday. Ali Desh says, I like your style, bro, but I can't subscribe to you just yet. You currently have 613 subscribers, which I actually don't anymore, Ali. So get on that. You currently have 613 subscribers. That is Ottawa's area code. I can't be the one to ruin that. Edit. P.S. I'm also a big Isles fan. I love to hear that. The Islander love up in Ontario. Much appreciated, brother. So I'm going to check. I'm going to make sure you subscribe now because we are at 615 last time I checked. So that is no longer the area code. So I should see 616 at some point today or tomorrow. And this guy's good. He actually he watches my videos, I could tell. So thank you very much, Ali, because you also commented on another video I made talking about the Senators. I said something about the blackout jersey, how there was another jersey that I wanted to get, and he already figured it out. So either he's a mind reader or he's just really good at reading my videos. So much appreciated, Ali. But back to Galchenyuk. I love what the first comment said, that it's a low risk and a potential for high reward. Let's remember, he is a former third overall pick. 26, he's 26 years old still. He's still fairly young, and it's a 1-year deal. No harm, no foul. And he also brought up the point that because of him being inserted into the lineup, Alex Formenton, who is a young forward for the Ottawa Senators, can continue to develop with high minutes in the American Hockey League, which I think is a very, who's to say that's a bad idea? I completely agree. Alex Formenton, 21 years old. He's been playing, and I like what Formenton adds. He's still young, and you know what? Especially with Ottawa, specifically this season, keeping the young guys out of this situation is not a bad thing. Look what he's done the past couple seasons. In 2017, 2018, played his first NHL game. That was the only game he played. He played 9 games in 2019. He put up a point, and then in 2019, 2020, he was playing in the American Hockey League, where he played very well. Put up 53 points last season with the Belleville Senators of the American Hockey League. So let him continue to develop. He's still 21 years old. He's 190 pounds, which, to me looks heavy, but for NHL players that are 6'3", I could see that making sense. Maybe he wants to bulk up just a little bit more, maybe get to 200. But healthy muscle, not from having too much cake. But I think Alex Formenton has the potential to be a very solid addition in the future for the Ottawa Senators. And I think that's really what they were thinking in this move, because Alex Formenton is still young, and they figured, you know what, let's add Alex Galchenyuk for this season, and at worst case, he leaves next year. No harm, no foul. And more than likely, this is Galchenyuk's last shot. I think whoever took a waiver on him here in this situation was Ottawa, is a great move, because he's going to be desperate this year, because he knows if he does not get things done this year, he's going to be going overseas next year. There's a great opportunity for Alex Galchenyuk. Now, with that said, he signed for a little over $1 million. But with that, with the Senators where they are with their salary, it doesn't even really matter that much. So no harm, no foul. Now we look up in Colorado. We've been talking about the Avalanche a lot recently. But we're going to be looking at Devin Tays signing with the Colorado Avalanche on a 4-year, $16.4 million contract. Now, this is a good contract for the Abbotsford native. He's 26 years old, left shot defenseman, former 4th-round pick by the New York Islanders in 2014. His time in the NHL, he had 3 seasons in the AHL, 3 seasons in Quinnipiac with the Quinnipiac Bobcats, and he also played in the BCHL with the Surrey Eagles before that. His 3 seasons in the NHL are pretty solid. He has 46 points in over 100 games in the NHL. For a defenseman, that's really not bad. That's, what is that, almost a point every 4 games, even 3 in some regards. So that's not too bad for Devin Tays, a puck-moving defenseman who can go on the power play. He is a very reliable defenseman in that regard. Sometimes he gets, bites him in the butt because he moves up too far on the play, but that's part of that defense. And the way Joe Sakic is building the Colorado Avalanche, it's a very offensive defense approach. And we've seen that work. You look what Dallas has done. They've added Jamie Alexiak back, but besides that, they are a very, a very good skating defense, and Devin Tays is a perfect piece to that. At a little over $4 million per season, it may be a little high, but based off of his situation, I think that's a good move by the Avalanche. He's playing on the 3rd pair because of how good that defense is, but I think the Avalanche hit a home run with Devin Tays, and the Islanders' salary cap has come back to bite them, and that's a good segue into the next guy. As the New York Islanders have re-signed Josh Ho-Sang, $700K for this season. Now, Josh Ho-Sang is one of those guys that I was debating when I heard this. See, this is a good thing for this podcast, is I'm going to talk about things that maybe it's not worthy of a full video, but a couple of minutes worth talking about. That's what we're going to talk about here. He's a Toronto native. He's 24 years old. 28th overall pick back in 2014 by the New York Islanders, back when Garth Snow was the general manager of the New York Islanders. Guys, excuse me for a minute. Okay. So Josh Ho-Sang. Back when he was drafted back in 2014, was a guy that everybody knew had elite talent. He had the talent. He had the skill. But there was a lot of issues with his off-ice scenarios. Whether that was, we don't really even know, honestly. People just have called it an attitude problem. And the NHL is one of those things where you look at where he is, and I don't want to get into this too much because it could get controversial, but there are certain things that you could see where people would say, oh, well, he's an attitude. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I have no reason to believe that he is an attitude because I don't know him personally, and I can't judge or speculate on that. But based off of what we've seen with teams, how they've handled him, there is some question about that and his professionalism in the NHL. Now, we remember back I believe it was last year or 2 years ago, where he actually spoke out during an interview down in Bridgeport of the American Hockey League. Now, if you know the Islanders farm system, and geographically, Bridgeport is in Connecticut, which is right above Long Island where the Islanders play. Now, it's kind of funny because we call it getting exiled to Bridgeport, which is actually mainland, and Long Island is technically the island, right? But they get exiled up to Bridgeport, and that's where Josh Ho-Sang has been. I mean, you look at what he did in the OHL with Windsor and Niagara. 44 points, 85 points, 19 points, 62 points, 82 points in his draft year. And then in 2016-2017, split time between the Islanders and Bridgeport. He put up 36 points in Bridgeport, 10 points in the NHL with the New York Islanders, 12 points the next season with the Islanders. And remember, that was with Doug Waite as the head coach, where the Islanders were a very offensive-minded team. They put up lots of points, lots of goals. They almost made it to the playoffs late in the season, but their defense was 31st in the NHL. Goaltenders wanted to get out of Long Island because they were like, I can't play for this team. The defense is awful. There's no defensive system under Doug Waite. And since then, he's kind of been buried in the American Hockey League. 40 points in 2018 with the New York Islanders, with Bridgeport. 2019, 18 points in the AHL in more game. Actually, excuse me, guys. 31 points in 2018. 43 points in 2019, and then in 10 games with the Islanders in 2019, this year, he put up 2 points. And then for the 2019-2020 season, he was in Bridgeport, 10 points in 16 games. He inevitably, Lou Lamoriello has a talking with Josh Ho-Sang, and they work on an agreement where he will not play, and the Islanders will try and find a fit for him. That was back in December of last year, maybe November, and he had not played for a few months. And then he was loaned to the San Antonio Rampage, which, if I'm not mistaken, was or still is no longer, for the Colorado Avalanche. I don't remember who the Rampage is right now. Who are they part of? Let me look. They're Pouliot, Michael Vachon, yeah. So the St. Louis Blues. So they are the St. Louis Blues AHL affiliate. So the Islanders re-signed Josh Ho-Sang to a $700K deal. Nothing crazy. He's not one of those guys that, honestly, I mean, if he was not an RFA, I think Lou Lamoriello was planning on letting him walk. But I think Josh Ho-Sang realizes with the market where it is, and, I mean, geez, we're talking about some of these guys like Mike Hoffman not being able to find a home. Like, these are legit NHL players. So for Josh Ho-Sang, he realized, geez, these guys aren't getting signed. How am I going to get signed? So he tendered a qualifying offer to make sure he gets a deal from the Islanders, whether that's through arbitration or they work something out. And he's at $700K. So that's a smart move by his agent and by Josh Ho-Sang. Now, is this him maybe developing a little bit and maturing and understanding that you have to play a certain way, especially with, I think Ho-Sang realized once teams weren't putting in to trade for him or go after him, or even when he was waived, nobody took him. I think that was a humbling moment for Josh Ho-Sang. And I think he's starting to realize that his value isn't as high as maybe he thought it was. Even, I mean, it was less than I thought. I thought somebody would have taken a waiver. I mean, there was talk Pittsburgh. I think jokingly because he's number 66, and we know how 66 is treated up in Pittsburgh because of Mario Lemieux. But yeah, that's something to keep an eye on with Josh Ho-Sang. We're going to see how this continues to play out, but his time with the Islanders has been very interesting, to say the least. Between Gar Snow, Lou Lamoriello, it still seems to be the same. He's playing in Bridgeport. All right, so on a lighter note, some entry-level contracts, baby. So we have Hendrix Lapierre, the Washington Capitals youngster. A lot of excitement around Lapierre. This is one of those guys that, you know, he's from Gatineau. He's playing with the Chicoutimi Seguinines of the QMJHL. Sorry for the pronunciation. He's a 2020 first-round pick, 22nd overall by the Caps. 45 points in his first season up there. 17 points in 2020. And this current season, he has 8 points in 4 games with Chicoutimi. So a lot of excitement around Hendrix Lapierre. And with the Capitals, really, you know, they've taken a big hit with their prospect pool. The Hershey Bears have struggled over the past couple of seasons. I really do follow the Hershey Bears, and I've seen they have struggled. They have their first and second round picks the next couple of years. And as we start to see Ovechkin and Backstrom get older, they're going to rely on these guys. Joel Snively, Hendrix Lapierre, Connor McMichael, Damian Reinhardt, Cody Clark, Garrett Pilon, Beck Malenstein, Daniel Sprong, remember him. On defense, Bobby Nardella, who I believe is playing in the NCAA. I've heard of that name. Alexander Alexiev, Martin Fairvey, Lucas Johansson, who still has not gotten to that potential ceiling that we've been hoping for. He's only 22 years old, brother of Ryan Johansson, if that name sounds familiar, down in Nashville. So we'll see how things go. But there's a lot of excitement around the Capitals as they try to build up that prospect pool. Hendrix Lapierre is a big part of that. The other big ELC we saw signed was the Minnesota Wild's first round pick from Austria. 19-year-old Marco Rossi. 2020 9th overall pick by Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild. His 2 seasons in the OHL with the Ottawa 67s, 65 points in his first season, 120 points in this past season in his draft year with the OHL's Ottawa 67s. Led the OHL in points, but because of his 19-year-old age, he is considered an overager compared to a lot of the players in his draft class, who either are Quentin Byfield, who is, I believe, 17 throughout most of the season, turned 18 before draft day, and most of the other guys are already 18. Now, he's not that much older. He's a 2001 baby. He's not that far off. But considering the other guys, he is considered an overager, which I think helped him this past season. I think he's going to be a very good player in the NHL. A lot of people gave me a lot of flack for him falling in the draft. There's no way he gets past Ottawa's picks. No way he gets past this team. No way he gets past that team. He goes at 9 to Minnesota. And I'm just going to say I'm right. I was right on that regard. But listen, that's just how it goes. I really like Marco Rossi. He's only 5'9". That's another big thing for Rossi is he's under 6 feet. Any guy that's under 6 feet you're doomed, whether it's dating or hockey or any sport for that matter. But that's how it goes. Marco Rossi, he has to put on a little size. He's only he's 187 pounds, 5'9". He's 19 already. Like, how much bigger is Marco Rossi gonna get? So those are the things that I really hope during quarantine, Marco Rossi has continued to work on and build up and bulk up as much as he can to go into the NHL. So that's it for the ELCs. Nothing too crazy on that front. We've seen a couple of other smaller name ones, but nothing too crazy. And then the restricted free agents. Let's take a look at those guys. Starting things off up in Detroit, Tyler Bertuzzi signs a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. Tyler Bertuzzi, former second-round pick in 2013 of the Red Wings, 25 years old, and he's had an interesting NHL career. Sudbury native, 6 feet, 199. In his NHL career, 119 points in his 200 games in the NHL. His next game will be his 200th game. He's played 199 games. He put up 48 points last season with the Red Wings. The season before that, he put up 47 points. So he's a 50-point player up in Detroit when they aren't even that good. And let's also remember, they only played 71 games this year. So he would have been over 50 points this season in most regards. He's a very good power forward. And actually, I'm shocked that his numbers are that high. He's getting this 3.5 this year, and Steve Yzerman sees an opportunity where they still have some bad contracts on their roster, so he's going to get paid pretty nicely in his next deal. They still have a decent amount of cap space. They have $15 million in cap space, but they have some guys come off the book. Guys like Darren Helm come off the books next year. Filppula, who are some other big Patrick Nemeth's deal comes off. Mark Stoll's 5.5 comes off next year. And they're still paying the final year of Hendrix Zetterberg's injured reserve deal as well. And the buyout of Abdelkader and Stephen Weiss. Jeez, they're still paying Stephen Weiss. Oh my God. But that's how it goes. So expect him to get a decent pay raise. And I think Yzerman's just looking to see, can he continue to put up 50 points consecutively? He's done it 2 years already. His value is definitely going to go up if he gets another third year of 50-plus points in an NHL season. Looking up in Buffalo, as the Buffalo Sabres have done pretty well here in free agency. They pick up Taylor Hall. They re-sign Sam Reinhardt, former second overall pick in 2014. And they also bring back goaltender Linus Ullmark. So starting things off, we're going to look at Sam Reinhardt. He can play center. He can play right wing. Left wing, a very versatile player, which you guys know I call them the Swiss Army knives. I really like what they have here with Sam Reinhardt. I think he's a great pickup, and this is a guy that you have to keep an eye on. He's even better than Abdelkader. In his NHL years, he's done very well. His first full season in the NHL, 42 points, 47 points, 50 points, 65 points, and this season in only 69 games, he put up 50 points. So you could project he would have been close to that 60, 65 points once again this year if we had a full season. He gets $5.2 million on the contract this year, and we'll be talking about next year, him needing, you guessed it, another contract. Probably a bigger one if he continues these 50-plus point seasons. He has 255 points in his exactly 400 NHL games. He's been in the NHL that long, guys. He's 24 years old. A little over 6 feet. This is a good player. Sam Reinhardt is a guy that I think in Buffalo, they've always, they expect more from him. But if you look at the talent around him, I mean, he can't. It's one of those things. It's like McDavid and Draisaitl, where you want them to play together, but you need to have depth throughout your roster. So sometimes Reinhardt would have to center his own line, and he wouldn't play as well. But we've seen that kind of change, and with Buffalo's, adding Eric Staal. I think adding Eric Staal was a huge move by the Buffalo Sabres, and it really helped them out. And adding Taylor Hall. I mean, you added 2 players into your top 6 right there with Eric Staal and Taylor Hall. And hopefully we see a bounce-back season from Jeff Skinner. $9 million for the next 7 years on Jeff Skinner. That's going to be that's a tough one. That's a tough one. For the Buffalo Sabres, but listen, that's how it goes, right? You can't blame Jeff Skinner for signing that contract. That's with a lot of guys. You can't blame these guys for signing these big contracts. It's what they were offered, right? So, I like Sam Reinhardt. I think that was a good move. Linus Ullmark, $2.6 million. He's 27 years old going into this season. The Swedish native, former 6th-round pick back in 2012. His numbers last year, his goals against average was a 2.69. his save percentage, can we get that? A 915, which not bad. Not bad, really. So, again, this is the kind of situation you're looking at with Linus Ullmark. I mean, a lot of people are projecting him to be the starting goaltender for the Sabres moving forward. Whenever I hear people say that, I'm like, oh no, you're really going to do that to this guy. Because every time you're supposed to be the next starter, the future between the pipes, it always goes badly because you just don't know how they're going to play out. But Linus Ullmark has been in the NHL now for 6 years. And he spent time in Rochester for a couple of those years. So he has some games under him in the NHL. He started in 97 NHL games, a career .911 save percentage. He's a capable goaltender for the Buffalo Sabres, and if they could keep him on a cheaper deal, they're still paying out Carter Hutton and his $275 this year, whatever. You give that money to Linus Ullmark next year when he gets his big pay raise. And you're probably going to have to sign him long-term after this season if you're Buffalo. And worst case, if you don't want to keep him, then you move him. And it doesn't really hurt them that much. Now, Hayden Fleury, Carolina Hurricanes draft pick, 7th overall back in 2014. He signs a contract, and a pretty good one as well. 2 years at $2.6 million. The former 7th overall pick in 2014 has had an interesting NHL career. 23 points in 132 games. Now, this is a defenseman that a lot of people consider to be an offensive defenseman, and he really hasn't put up the numbers to show that. So that's something to keep an eye on with Hayden Fleury. I think the Hurricanes were looking to trade him out. I mean, you look at let's just take a look at their depth chart, because the Hurricanes' defense has gotten a lot stronger based off of what they did at the trade line last year. And what we've just seen them do in general. You've got Jacob Slavin, Dougie Hamilton as your top pair, Brady Shea and Brett Pesce on the second pair, Jake Gardiner and Hayden Fleury on that third pair. But we know that they have young prospects in the system. And the one that always comes to mind, specifically right now, is an AHL All-Star for the Charlotte Checkers, their AHL affiliate. Well, actually no longer their AHL affiliate. Jake Bean. Jake Bean is a guy to keep an eye on for the Hurricanes. And I wouldn't be surprised if he takes Hayden Fleury's spot moving forward after this season. You've got Jake Bean, Joey Keane, Gustav Forsling, Roland McEwen, who he is considered an RFA right now, so who knows what's going to happen with McEwen. But those guys have the potential. I think specifically Jake Bean, Gustav Forsling, and Roland McEwen, those three guys are fighting with Hayden Fleury for that spot in the bottoms, in that third pair for the Hurricanes. Jake Gardiner's here. I don't think Gardiner's going to move. And that's really what you have. And Jacob Slavin, we've seen how good he is. He really shined in the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs when they went on that run to the Eastern Conference Final. Unfortunately, lost to the Boston Bruins, but a bunch of teams lost to the Bruins. Dougie Hamilton has really emerged as a really solid defenseman there. Tough trade for Calgary, moving him out. And it seems like the loss of Noah Hannafin, a former top 5 pick, really didn't hurt them that much when they brought in Dougie Hamilton. Was a questionable trade at the time, trading out Elias Lindholm, but it seems to be working out quite well for the Hurricanes. Brady Shea, like I said, I think that contract's going to hurt them long term, but overall, he is a solid defenseman. Again, I think he will be replaced by Jake Bean or Roland McEwen down the road. And Brett Pesce, again, another solid defenseman. So the Hurricanes are one of those teams that they signed Fleury on a deal. It's a 2-year deal, no harm, no foul, and I don't think it really hurts them that much. Apologize for that, guys. But this is an interesting look for the Hurricanes. And I wanted to touch on a couple things. I made videos talking about this already, but we're going to look at some of the reverse retro jerseys. I'm probably going to talk about it more in the next podcast, which will be next Thursday, so make sure to check that out. But I want to look at the Dallas Stars blackout jersey, and a lot of people have been very vocal about it, and it's been pretty pretty interesting. I think a lot of you like the jersey, including myself. I like this jersey. It's not... The problem with it that I have is we've seen the San Jose Sharks. They kind of did that already. And it's like everybody's kind of copycatting on it, which I'm not a huge fan of. But, I mean, whatever. It is what it is, I guess. But it's a clean-looking jersey. And I think it's a win for the Dallas Stars. We're going to see the reverse retros. I'll probably, like I said, I've already made videos on the reverse retros that we've already seen leaked. But we're going to go on aesthetics, and I'm just going to show you guys all of them in that podcast. Make sure to stay tuned because I'm already starting to, scramble ideas. I want to talk about the 2021 NHL Draft in a future podcast. And I'm sure other things will come up. We're going to continue to see RFAs getting signed. Hopefully Matt Barzal sometime soon, as well as a couple other guys. We still have Pierre-Luc Dubois, still a pretty big name on the RFA market. I plan on actually doing a video taking a look at the top RFAs available and which team should pursue these RFAs, and I look at that. But looking at these top guys, I mean, we're looking at them right here. Matt Barzal, Ryan Strome, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Anthony Cirelli, Anthony Mantha, Ryan Pulock, Dylan Strome, Jake DeBrusk, Mikhail Sergachev, Rupe Hintz, Jesper Bratt, maybe a lesser name, Luke Cunnin, Warren Fogle, Jack Roslovic, and Vince Dunn. That's your top 15. So there's still some pretty big names out there. I mean, Matt Barzal, come on, guys. I mean, that's a big one, especially as an Islander fan. That is scaring me because we don't know what's going to happen. Is the team going to tender a qualifying offer? Teams have the cap space. I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Guys, thank you so much for checking out our first podcast. Leave feedback in the comment section down below. Do you like the format? I kind of talked, a little rapid fire of some little things in the beginning and then talked about the main topic, which was the restricted free agents. Let me know what you think of our first podcast in the comment section down below and on our Patreon. Make sure to check that out if you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey. It's not perfect, and I'm sure I have to clean this up. It's a little bit raw because it's my first one, but I definitely appreciate the feedback. Constructive criticism is my best friend. So thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.